Hi there. The right inspiration and spiritual download doesn't magically make your project come to life. Hi there, I'm Raquel, and this is day 2 of 30 days of listening. And let's jump in, shall we? So, what I've noticed is that um, women wait for like the right time and the right and enough information to come through so they can finally say, oh, now I know that I'm supposed to start doing the thing that I'm meant to put out into the world. I used to believe that too, right? That like receiving the download meant that the outcome was like inevitable. That like, yes, this is my thing to create because I'm the one who received the message about it. And I learned the hard way that it doesn't work that way, right? Um, and so I want to talk a little bit about what it looks like when you think that um, you're actually like working on your project when like that's not necessarily the case, right? So this is what I imagine, this is what my processes look like. Sometimes this is what other people's processes look like as I work with them. It's like you get the spark, you get the like this hit of inspiration. Sometimes you're in your like yummy meditation zone, sometimes you're journeying with your guides, sometimes you're in a reading, sometimes you're in your beloved shower or in a body of water somewhere in nature that is like helping you be able to connect with this part of the divine within you and outside of you, right? And you can feel it. You can feel how alive you are. You can feel how alive the project is, and you can nearly like, I always say, like, you can almost like you can taste what the final project will be, right? And for that, for you that project may be like a book, an offer in your business, a business idea, um, like a work of art, right? Or like a film, like whatever project, right? So based on how you're here, how you landed here, there might be a couple of those different kinds of projects, right? So initially you get the spark. You're in this space where you receive it and you're like, oh my God, this is the thing. And you can like feel it and you can see it and you can sense it. And it is such a high, right? To like receive that like download, right? They call it a download because I don't like the word download. I use it because I know a lot of people use it, right? But the idea that like, oh my God, you're being given exactly what you need, right? But that feeling of being on a high is sneaky, right? So you sit there, you receive this powerful spark, this moment of inspiration. You can feel, you can sense the project, and then you go journal about it, or maybe you voice memo about it in a moment. Maybe you decide, I want further guidance on this thing, so I'm going to get a reading. Or maybe you're going to pull a card. You're like, give me confirmation, right? Because you're like, oh, let me seek more guidance because that will feel like I'm actually making progress on the thing that I just was given this download about, right? And really, you're sitting here and you're waiting. And sometimes it's just you keeping yourself busy, right? So sometimes what that looks like in my process and what it's looked like with other people I worked with is like, oh, they'll like go get the techie thing done because the techie thing is always the thing, right? So you get the techie thing done. You redesign your website, you pay someone to help you with a certain component of the project, you rename the offer or the thing several times, you figure out how to make this like workbook prettier somehow and just right, right? And it feels like you're doing work, but the truth is that like nobody, you're not actually interacting with anyone to make that work happen. And so you've done some of that stuff. And then when you sit down to do the thing and you feel it's a little hard, so take, for instance, you have an offer in your business and you sit down and you try to map it out. Or there's an idea that you have for an offer and you're like, oh, let me sit and spend time on it. Or there's a part of a book that you're like, oh my God, they gave me this vision. I'm going to get started on it. And then when you finally sit and you're done tinkering, either gathering guidance or redesigning something or spending time on the extraneous, right? You sit down and you realize, wow, this is hard. And that signals to you, like, oh, if it's hard, then that must mean that it's wrong. And that must mean that it's not aligned yet. So then you close your laptop or you stop doing whatever it is you think you were doing to get started. And you go looking for that feeling again, right? Instead of just getting to work, you go look for more guidance. You look for the next thing that you think will help make it less hard to sit down and do the thing. And now you're sitting there and you've got like years, possibly months, maybe weeks, based on where you're at with your project, of like saved sparks. Isn't that funny? Like a set, like if you opened up your phone and you looked at the notes app, right? How many things have you like written down and you saved, or like, I don't know, I call it like, when you're on the social media and you're like, I'm gonna do the recipes. I'm gonna go do this because I'm a creative too. And so I'm like, let me save all these recipes. And you save and you save and you save, but you never go back. You never actually do the thing that you saved, that you noted for yourself, that you documented. And now you're wondering, like, oh, wow, do I just like not have the discipline? Or you doubt yourself. You're like, oh, yeah, I don't really have the skill to do this thing. Or sometimes the path we go is like, oh, maybe my connection to the divine is like not real. Or maybe that download that I was given, that spark and inspiration, maybe it wasn't for me. Right? But I'm here to tell you the hardness isn't a sign. The timing isn't wrong. You're not yet, that feeling of you not feeling aligned is not necessarily true. Right. So before I jump into like why that may be the case, I'm going to share with you first, like illustrate through a few stories of my own, right? Like where I receive all these downloads and all these insights. But what had to happen was I actually had to get to work. Right. So this first story has to do with my book. So I get visions of my book all the time. And what I mean by visions is like, I will go on a walk and I will see it in my hands. I know what the cover looks like. I know what it feels like. I know what the color of the title is. BT Dubs, I have within me about 3 different book ideas, and I know they will all come to fruition. And I can feel them. I know what their covers look like. I know what the essential point of all these books is going to be. But it's never really those visions that have actually gotten me to write like anything on a page. What actually gets me to write almost anything is usually co-working hours, time in which I spend with other people in a room, preferably virtual, and we're all working on something for a set period of time. And this is how I've known this about myself since I've been in education for so long. I wrote a dissertation to get a PhD, and early on, I built all these writing groups because I just couldn't find a reason to show up to do the work. Because whenever I did it on my own, I was like, nah, and then I don't do it. I find things around me to really distract me, keep me from moving through this particular difficult part or even doing any work at all. I believe that like our spaces often dictate the way that we create and in the way we create. And often during my dissertation, I was like, my home is not the space to build this thing in the beginning because it's just like, it's my home. It's this place, right? And then the pandemic hit. And then I knew that that space had to be made into 2 zones, like the couch, because I lived in a studio, right? The couch in which work got done, the place in which I recorded videos for teaching, and then the place where I sat to do the work for the dissertation. But I couldn't have gotten there on my own and been able to move through the end of my dissertation if I didn't have actual presence with other people. And before the pandemic, all that stuff was in person. Like literally, I would show up in person. I remember early on, like there were like 1 or 2 weekends a month where I did it for a semester. I'm like, oh, this is so hard. I don't know what I'm doing, all this stuff. And then I show up and I'm like, well, people are here. People are working. And that's helpful for 2 reasons. That means if I see other people work, that means I showed up to work. So I got to do something. And 2, if there are other people around me who've been doing this for a little longer than me or are doing something similar, right? They're working on the same tasks, then I can ask them for help. And we can like take a break in between writing and like actually have a conversation with another human, which gives us another set of information and motivation to like keep returning to the writing, right? And so for me, that's what I need. I need the presence of others in this moment where things are a little hard, right? And then as I build that momentum, right, with the book, I can then end up on my own, right? Like I don't need that, right? And so I'm just reminding that like if you need company along on your journey after you receive that spark to help you move through that difficult part of like getting started, which sometimes is the most difficult part in the creative process for some people, that's not necessarily a flaw in your connection with the divine. That's you as a human moving through a creative process of doing something that you may or may not have done before, right? That's just one particular stage. My second story has to do with an offer my business, right? So for so long, I've been certified as an Akashic Records reader. I have done readings with women one on one, but there is something in my intuition that's always told me like, but what do women do with this after they receive this information? Right? Like what is it they go on to do? Like what happens in their lives? There are a few people that will like keep me updated. But those are like people that I'm close to or that are like in another offer in my business, right? Or if I like follow them online and I sort of see their journey as they're unfolding because they share that journey with other people, I get to witness it. But I've always had this thing in me. Like there's something beyond the reading. And what did I do? I tinkered. I spent a whole lot of time creating a pretty sales page, trying to figure out the structure of the offer, figuring out a name for the offer. Um, I even spent some time, eventually, I spent a little bit of time trying to sell it. Even though, I'll be honest, in comparison to the way I've sold other offers, I didn't really go in the way I do. I like took it as like, let me show you sort of what I learned by moving through the process of a reading. It wasn't like it didn't feel like a sales process in the way that I've gone and I've sold other things, right? And the truth is that whenever I go into the records and I ask for guidance and I receive these visions and they're given to me, the guides always come back and they're like, stop asking us about the same thing because we can no longer give you more information until you've taken enough action to then have a new question. Right? So I can sit here and go into the records and ask all these questions about how would I structure the offer? What would I do? And like at some point, they're going to give you whatever guidance you desire. But then at some point, they just stop. They're like, okay, let's stop living in a theoretical spiritual realm. You have to go and make it real. Right. Because that's why we're here as humans. We're here to make things real. That's a beautiful part of being a creator is like you were placed on planet Earth to create and make things physical here in this realm. And so at some point, after you ask about things for pretty often enough, they're like, nah, we ain't got no more. We ain't got no more to share. Like you need to take the guidance we gave you and do something with it. And like action has to be taken. And it wasn't until I was like, fine, I'll get to work. I'll create. And they helped me create the offer for the second or third time. And then I just went out. And instead of trying to sell it, I chose to just get to work. I was like, who can I reach out to who might have received a reading or who I know is in my world who's going to sign up for something that I'm trying to experiment with? And what would the exchange be if I'm not asking for them to pay for it? Right? And what's going to make me feel good to experiment and try this out, to answer this question in the back of my mind, which is what happens after someone receives a reading? Because I know what happens to me, but I'm a reader and I have a connection to the record. So what does that mean for me? That means I keep going back. Like I do something in the world and I return. But other people don't have that. The people that I do readings for often don't. There are a couple people who are readers who I've done readings for, but the grand majority are not. Right. And so that's the question I had. And it wasn't until I actually decided, okay, I'm just going to put this out here and get to work. Like get to work and not just like trying to make money in the business, but try to get to work and actually helping people beyond the reading. Right? Because like that's the muscle that I'm building beyond that, using my energy coaching, using my coaching skills, using my strategy, using my ideas and notion of the creative process to figure out how to help someone make sense of like a reading, because not all readings are quite straightforward. And even if they are, it doesn't mean that you follow the guidance you've received T for T, right? And hopefully in the next 30 days, I'll also show you that like sometimes you're not receiving guidance in order to follow it step by step. You're receiving it so that it sparks something in you to do something in the world so that you can bring your project to life and you can do it in the way you're meant to do it, right? But I hope what you can see through both stories is that you don't just make things because you receive a spiritual download. The divine requires you to go take action on it and not some like tinkering that sort of looks like you're taking action. It's like, no, like get to work on the thing, right? The thing that it probably feels a little, it feels, I call it like a slight resonance, like is off. Like you sit down and you're like, do. And like the field is shaking and you're like, oh my God, but shouldn't it just feel good? I was like, yeah, at some point. But if you don't show up to a co-working hours, if you don't find someone who will support you, if you don't take action in actually getting to work on the thing, right, then it never comes to be, right? And so what I want to remind you is that the spark does come to you, and it only comes to you for the project that you're meant to put out in the world. But the fire that you build from that spark usually gets done with other people. And that's not just like physical people, there are guides that can also help you actually get to work, right? So, and I think that's the beauty of working with the spiritual and energetic realm. It's like you're not alone as you go on this journey, and they're often guiding you towards people in the physical realm to help you get to work, right? And so, for right now, I want you to consider and think about what's the vision that keeps like coming to you? What's the thing that you know you journaled about, you've thought about? I don't know, tears are coming up, like you've cried about because you sort of want to do this thing, but you don't know how to get started. And so, like, kind of frustrating, right? And then think about what is the smallest distance between you and doing that thing that will get you to doing that thing, right? Because, like, intuitively, I'm led to share with you something I shared with a client. It's like the distance between me and having an answer to the question of like what happens after someone receives a reading is just asking someone to help me figure out the answer to that question by signing up to work with me as a sacred exchange. They will receive something no matter what, and I will receive finally the answer to this question that's been at me, right? And so what is the smallest thing that you could do that will get you closer to be in the action of doing the thing that is most in service to the project that you're here to do? And if it breaks your heart to be like, I don't know, then set aside just like 10, 15 minutes. It doesn't have to be action that takes hours. This is another thing. People think creativity happens in like hours and hours and hours. It happens just in small moments at a time. And in the beginning, you have to begin with very small. And so that's what I'm going to invite you to do, right? And if you can't do it alone, text a friend, find a co-working space. And remember that finding the right company, I also encourage you, like they showed me like the space of a cafe. So like there might be a special space in which you might be able to work on the project that it like literally will allow you to like channel and begin to express that in relation to it. So that's what they're asking me to tell you is like there are people, there are places, and there are things that are going to help you just take like one micro step to doing the thing that you're here to do. And they're saying like people is like, are there people who support you who you can sit with and be like, can you just sit with me? Or could you talk throughout something? Because they're also showing me somebody's going to talk something out with someone, and that will help reflect to them and record that conversation and then return to it and see, right? People also is like, can you get someone to just sit with you and do something for a short period of time? Like I often ask my partner, I was like, I have 15 minutes. Can you just like help me just do this one thing that's like really hard right now? And he sits there while I do the thing that's really hard. But sometimes that's all we need, right? The people could also be asking a mentor or guide. Some of you have someone that you have hired that is supposed to help you with the project that you've signed up for, but you haven't actually asked them the question of like, how do I move through this hard part? And so if that's you, go get help from that person. That's a real action step to like say, hey, I'm stuck here. You're a person I hired because I knew intuitively you would help me. Like, what do you think of what's happening with me right now? What would be the next best step? Right. And see what feels right and true. Right. So those are the different ways if you're a person who's supposed to tap into people to take the next step. Places, they're literally being like, they're showing me like, get out of wherever you always frequent and go somewhere new. Stop expecting the space that you're situated in to somehow flower and give you everything that you need for that moment. So they're showing me someone like, if you always channel in your house in this way, get out of the house and find a place that feels good and bring something with you so you can record whatever it is you're going to do in relation to the project, right? Because some of you will, they're saying like voice record it, and some of you will like write it, right? And they're like, really think about like, what's the space that like, as you sit for a moment in your heart, you're like, oh, I really want to be there because that's the place that feels right. Because I know I can envision, I can feel myself creating there. And they're reminding me to tell you, don't overcomplicate this, yo. Like, make it simple, right? Very, very simple. Don't be like, oh, I got to wait till I book a vacation in this special place at a special locale. Like, let's remove all that. We're talking about a place and a space that you can go to right now. That's within your budget, within your periphery, within your time frame to just go sit at for 15, 20 minutes. And then the last thing they wrote is things. Some of you are creating and you're not inspired by the things that you create with. And so they're reminding me to tell you, I only like certain pens for when I'm channeling. There are only certain pens I like to journal with because my hands are actually like, I have tendonitis. And so I really like to take care of myself. There are certain pieces of paper that I like to have that are weighted a certain way and that feel a certain way. And so they're reminding you, like, you get to consider the things that you use to create because those things could also help you create, right? So take 10, 15 minutes. Which one of these will help you just be able to like actually take action on your project so you can feel like you're moving? Because I kid you not, the moment you do that, it like literally sparks something in the field and something will either happen or you'll be led to gather more specific guidance so you can keep returning to your project, right? All right. So tell me in the comments what project you're working on and what 10 to 15 minutes you're doing of like tending. Like, are you going to do people, places, or things? I'm reading every single one, and I would love to witness you and encourage you on your journey. And if you're doing this for 30 days with me, then I will see you tomorrow around the same time. I might do noon tomorrow because it's a Saturday. And hopefully I will see you then. Bye.